Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judah, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores, and we're about to embark on the Divisional Round of the NFL playoffs, perhaps the best weekend of the year, with the final eight teams left in the tournament, gunning for spots in the two championship games. And joining me to break it all down is no other than Full 10 Yards contributor and GP blog editor as well. He does lots of sports. It's Mr. Olly Darcy, fellow sports journalist. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. It's been an interesting couple of weeks for me, and I loved Sunday. That was a beautiful day. Playoff football, nothing better, and yeah, divisional weekend is going to be something else. So can't wait for it.
Yeah, Ollie's been a bit ill lately, and he's also a Packers fan, so he swings and roundabouts there. great couple of weeks for him. And before we get into the four matchups, we've had a bit of news on the coaching and GM front. We'll get into that now. We've had the first head coach unveiling of the 8 vacancies this year so far, with former Patriots linebacker and linebacker coach Gerard Mayo being announced as Bill Belichick's successor this week as head coach of the New England Patriots. He not only becomes the youngest coach in the NFL, he also becomes the first black head coach in New England history as well, so a bit of history there. And as with when Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, Bill Belichick actually picked Mayo as his successor when signing his last contract. He had it written into his contract that Gerard Mayo would be the new head coach. Obviously, one of his favourite players as a coach, and then obviously he's a big part of that New England coaching staff in the later years as well. So that's all confirmed there. And he did his press conference this week. Belichick could actually quickly fall into another head coaching job, being invited for a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons, which to me is a strange decision for both parties, and I'll get into that in a minute. I just don't get that at all, really. But he looks like he's the only person being invited back for a second interview so far, so it's probably going to be his job unless he decides to go somewhere else. And maybe Philadelphia. Maybe that job comes up. You don't know. Washington, the Commanders have announced that San Francisco assistant judge GM Adam Peters as their new general manager. I think that's a cool move because it's rewarding someone from a successful front office, because the Niners have done great recently, and he'll have an input on the hiring of their new head coach in the coming weeks too. And then finally, Cowboys owner, GM and everything else, Jerry Jones, has announced that he is sticking with Mick McCarthy as head coach despite another early playoff exit. Thoughts on these bits of news, Ollie?
Well, there's been a lot that's happened over the last week and a bit, getting into what we call silly season in the coaching market. Gerard Mayo was a very interesting one for me. Like, I'd expect a big name to go to the Patriots after getting rid of Bill Belichick. But if that's who Bill Belichick has selected, then I can understand why New England have done that after everything he's done for them. I don't know a lot about him. I never really saw him play. I've not really seen him coach either. Was he part of the coaching staff before Belichick left at New England?
Yes, he was linebacker coach, so he's been there for a while. Yeah, so he's been in and around that defense, which has been so good for a very long time. He's been coaching it for multiple years now. So he's got pedigree. He knows what he's doing around there. So it's not like you're throwing someone new in there. So it'd be you want to see everyone succeed in the job they get. So if it works for the Patriots and it works for him, then that is great. It'll be really interesting to see. It's another defensive-minded coach. What happens to that Patriots offense? You don't know. Will they regress even further if that's possible? We'll see. They need to get it spot on this off-season. So whether Mayo does that, I don't know. Belichick going to the Falcons, which looks pretty set in stone, was something I didn't expect to see. I thought he'd be going to somewhere a bit bigger, but then I saw the news that he wanted a bit of a project somewhere that was grossly underachieving, and the Falcons are your bread and butter there, really, aren't they? They've had a real torrid time with it. So
if that's where he wants to go, it's his second. It's a second interview for him. Then I think it is a good project for him. They've got the talent on offense and defense. Really, it just needs to be put through. It just needs to be put through a bit of a. It needs a kick up the backside from Belichick. So I think he can give them that, and the Falcons then can kick on from that. They need to get someone in at quarterback, obviously, to make a difference. But it'd be a good move for him. And then I really, as you said, with the Commanders and the GM, I like that move a lot. 49ers have built up one of the best rosters in the league, full stop. Their front office has been absolutely fantastic in what they've done. So to bring an assistant in who was obviously a key part of that is a brilliant move for Washington. Whether that changes the fortunes of this franchise, I don't know. The Commanders have been just all over the shop the last few years. And then the biggest shock for me was definitely Mike McCarthy staying. My original thought was why, as a lot of people would have been, but then you think, who else can they bring in? But for a team to go 12-5 3 seasons in a row and not even have, did they even make the divisional? Have they made the divisional?
They made the divisional round last year, and then they got absolutely smashed by San Francisco last year in the divisional round. Yeah,
it's not a good look. I was, as a Packers fan, I know what Mike McCarthy can bring, but I know when it turns sour, it goes really sour. So I'm not 100% sure what Jerry Jones is thinking, especially after him saying it was one of the most brutal playoff losses against the Packers. So I'm not really sure what his thought process there is, but that's what the Cowboys are doing, and they're going to stick with it for another year at least.
Yeah, my only caveat I don't get it, especially with how the Cowboys have been just stuck in, not being able to win a playoff game for so long. My only caveat with McCarthy, well, I can see why he stayed, is because of how good that Prescott had looked this year with McCarthy play calling. Yeah, it was leaps and bounds ahead of what it was with Kellen Moore. And a lot of people were worried about McCarthy coming back and play calling after so long out of the game doing that. But his offense this year wasn't. It was a problem at the start of the year. He fixed it, but it wasn't really the problem in the game against Green Bay. It was the defense that just imploded out of nowhere. So but either way, I probably think it probably would have been time to move on. They probably should have gone for someone like Belichick, or maybe Mike Vrabel, just someone who knows how to win in the playoffs. Because I think that roster needs that. But it looks like they're going to roll it back, and we'll see how that goes for Dallas. But I think Jerry might regret that, especially with the caliber of head coaches on the market. Yeah. As for Belichick, which I said I was going to get into in a minute. For me, I just don't get it, because he's someone who's neglected the offensive side of the football for so long, and the Falcons need a quarterback. They also have so many offensive skill position players that aren't being used right, and that's the same in New England. And they already have a good defense. So if you're looking at it that way, it's basically just the Patriots with some more skilled position players, you'd say, but they're not being used right. And you still have to find a quarterback, and that's the hardest thing to do in the NFL. So that just worries me if Belichick just does go to the Falcons. But look, maybe they make a play for Justin Fields or something like that potentially. You never know. It's certainly a possibility. I'd love to see Justin Fields in Atlanta, but maybe not coached by Bill Belichick. But we'll move away from that now. We'll go on to the divisional round, which kicks off in Baltimore, where the AFC number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens will enter the NFL playoffs. They obviously had the bye last week, so it's their first playoff game this year. The team with the best record in the NFL and MVP favourite Lamar Jackson will take centre stage in a fun battle against a young team on the up in the Houston Texans. Rookie quarterback CJ Stroud has taken the league by storm, and so has rookie head coach D'Amico Ryans too, who is a candidate for Coach of the Year. And their defense, led by Ryans, stepped up down the stretch and scored 2 pick sixes in their win over the Browns on Saturday, which helped them win that game. Stroud's the runaway favourite for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and B backed up his regular season form with a near-perfect performance to lead into victory against the Browns in the wildcard round last Saturday. He was only a couple passes being completed away, like Jordan Love was, away from being a perfect passer rating in the playoffs, which for a rookie quarterback is outstanding. I was very high on them coming into the year. I love how they built the roster, and I had them as the winners of the draft in April. I knew this would work, but even I'm shocked as to how good this is all just combined in Houston. It's some story, isn't it?
It fell into place just so perfectly for everything. I mean, they were so aggressive in the draft, and it just kind of set the tone for what DeMeco Ryans wants and what the team's about, really. Getting Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, then Will Anderson, sorry, just showed. It just gave you a staple for your offense, for your defense, and it gave you some belief, like these guys can go and win you games. So they've transferred into the NFL seamlessly almost. Will Anderson's been very nice. He's got sacks. He can do everything off the edge. But I mean, CJ Stroud coming in as a rookie has been just phenomenal. You knew that he was going to be good. Second pick in the draft, he was obviously going to be good. But the way that he has conducted himself, the way he is on the field, what he can do with the ball, he can do everything. And as you say, it's just fallen so perfectly for the Texans. I didn't have them winning. I'm going to be honest. I thought they've had a really nice year. Stroud's looked brilliant, but they're going to struggle against a top defense in the Cleveland Browns. And CJ Stroud was just having absolutely none of it. A almost perfect game, like you said, just a few passes away, 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards, 76% completion rate. And that's just brilliant from a rookie. It's seen. So they've been perfect. The defense stepped up, like you said, DeMeco Ryans this year. And when it mattered most, they turned the ball over twice and scored with it. And yeah, they can be really, really dangerous against a Ravens team that we know does struggle in the postseason.
Exactly. They now head on the road to Baltimore, who were excellent in the regular season, winning in all 3 phases, and especially in big games, which is something for them which they haven't been in recent years. They've had 6 wins this year against playoff teams, which is perfect for them going into the postseason. Stroud and the Houston offense now face the number 1 scoring defense after taking down Cleveland's number 1 yardage defense last week. So this, they're going from one top defense to another top defense. The Browns defense obviously didn't turn up last week, but I think Baltimore's will, especially with this game being in Baltimore as well. And last week the Texans were at home. This Ravens defense are just so good at everything. They lead the league in sacks per game and are tied with the Giants in takeaways. It's a tough test for a rookie quarterback, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator, comes up to deal with that, because he's a great year calling plays and playing to Stroud's skill set. He's come up with a great game plan pretty much every week, getting some sort of receiver open, whether it was Tank Dell before he got hurt, or Nico Collins, or someone like Noah Brown, or they had like 90 yards of tight ends last week. Over 100 yards of tight ends last week as well. He can scheme people open, and it's the San Francisco offense. It's the San Francisco offense. This West Coast offense is so perfect for a young quarterback, and Stroud just stepped into it and played absolutely phenomenal. And if Slowick can do something brilliant, come up with a great game plan, I think he is probably he's already getting head coaching interviews. If he can do a just blind with a game plan here and win this game, he's a head coach next year. So that's something that Houston might have to deal with next year. But yeah, this is a real big test for him, and it's just a fascinating battle going up against the Ravens defense, isn't it? Because it's been so good all year.
Well, I mean, the Ravens have been just known to have steel curtain defense every year. They might lose some players, but their defense just turns up. But I was looking through and I realised they have still got massive names. I forgot Roquan Smith was there, just in the middle of that defense, which is
their linebackers. They set the tone of their defense. You got Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith together. Like, wow.
They've just been the linebacker at the Ravens has just been a position for years and years. It's just been perfect. And it's the same with the 49ers. You got two absolute studs at linebacker, and it just sets the tone. And that's what the Ravens have done all season. As you said, they've sacks per game. They've been all over it. They takeaways. They turn the ball over. And for a new offensive coordinator like Slowick, and for a young offense like the Texans, it's a bear pit environment. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that offense does, like you say, against a defense like the Ravens. I mean, that Ravens defense, they just do not let up. Whether they will in the playoffs, no one knows. Like you said, I don't think they will, just because of how good they have been. They'll keep their foot to the floor and they will really challenge the Texans.
Yeah, certainly. And I think the same goes with Mike McDonald, the Ravens defense coordinator on the other sideline. If he can take away the threat that Nico Collins possesses, then I think Houston will find it tough. And, again, if he has a great playoffs, then Mike McDonald is definitely going to be a head coach as well. He's one of those people that has been, requested by head coaching jobs so often for interviews. I think Harbaugh will find it tough to keep hold of him. And also, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, he may join Jim Harbaugh in as well. He may jump the ship because he was Jim's defensive coordinator in Michigan before going to work with John. So I think either way, Mike McDonald's going to have a very, very good offseason. He's going to get paid, certainly. And again, with that defense as well, when you're leading in sacks per game without having, or just had the most sacks as a team in general this season, when you have that without having an established pass rusher, they don't have a Nick Bosa, they don't have a Will Anderson. They've got Justin Madubuike, and you've got great players inside, but they've not got got Jadavion Clowney getting sacks, Carl Van Noy. These are veterans that have been around for years, and they're not like a standout pass rusher. They've just been it's just such a great scheme, and it's really it really puts some quarterbacks under pressure. I'm really fascinated to see how the Ravens play in this one because, as you've mentioned, Ollie, they are not great in the playoffs. Since 2018, they are 1-4 in the postseason. 3 of those losses with Lamar Jackson. One of them Lamar got hurt in, and then the other one was with Tyler Huntley last year when the Ravens made the playoffs after Lamar got injured. And the biggest of those losses was when they were last number 1 seed in 2019 after Lamar's MVP season. He's going to be MVP this year as well. And they lost to Tennessee as the 1 seed then. But for me, I think Lamar's really taken the next step as a passer this year, especially when they asked him to pass the ball more. They've relied less on the run game. And also, he's not really run the football as much as he normally would as well. He has been a drop-back passer this year, and he has been excellent. And he's really come up in the big games against San Francisco at the end of the year, against Miami, against Detroit. He's had outstanding performances in all those games, and that's why he's going to be MVP, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you were saying he's been able to pass the ball much more. He's stopped his running a little bit more, and he's stepped back in the pocket and he's slinging the ball downfield. The reason why he's been able to do that, I think, for me, is that he's now got established wide receivers, which he has not had before. He hasn't had before. So he's got Odell, a healthy Odell now. He's got Zay Flowers, got Aguilar, who may not be at his peak, but he can still be there. And they've got Rashad Bateman as well. And to just have those at Lamar's disposal, the electric player that Lamar is just so dangerous. And you think Lamar couldn't get better, but giving him those weapons, believe it or not, has made him better. And it's something that the Ravens haven't really had in the playoffs at all. So it'll be really interesting to see how he plays with those receivers in the playoffs and how the game is called, like you said, because I feel like they won't turn away from what's worked throughout the regular season. They will make him pass the ball. Whether that is the recipe for success to help them navigate a nice playoff run, which is what they should do as the 1 seed, we'll see. I think it will, because that is the way the league goes. So yeah, we just have to see how they dial it up with these receivers at his disposal. As you said, he's thrown the ball beautifully all season. Whether it takes a hit because it's in the playoffs, we don't know. I don't think it will. I think, as you said, he's made that step. He's had his playoff woes before. I think it is the Ravens' time and Lamar's time this time round.
Awesome. And having Mark Andrews back will be mega too. He's practiced this week, so he could be back there. He's already, found a great tight end, connection in Andrews' absence in Isaiah Likely. He's had a phenomenal year since Andrews went down. But obviously having Andrews to add to the likes of Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, as you said, he's that is perfect for Baltimore heading into the postseason. And even if Andrews doesn't play, I'm still picking Baltimore to win this one. I think Marlon Humphrey being out does worry me a little bit on the back end, because the Texans have, trying to take away Collins without Marlon Humphrey might be a bit of an issue. But he has been in and out of the lineup already this year, and he hasn't really been that big of a loss when he has been out of the lineup for Baltimore so far this year. So they've still been good in the back end, and I think that will continue in this game. I'll be tempted to bet Houston to cover, because the Ravens are favored by 9.5 points, and I don't know if they're going to win by 10 points in this one. It's quite a spread, but I think they do get it done, and I set up a home AFC Championship game. What about you, Ollie?
No, I do agree with you. I never like betting. I never like picking the favourites, because you just don't know what's going to happen. But as I just said, I think it is the Ravens' time this time around. I don't think this will be the shock. There's always a shock in the playoffs in one game. It won't be this one. I don't think I will. As you said, I think the Texans will cover the spread. I don't think the Ravens will win by 10. It'll be a much closer game than the bookies make it. But the Ravens have that quality. They're the 1 seed for a reason, and they'll go into the AFC Championship game.
Awesome. And that game is the early game on Saturday, so it kicks off at 9:30 at night on Saturday, and it's followed by Green Bay heading to San Francisco after shocking the number 2 seed Dallas Cowboys in what seemed like their year, the Cowboys' year. It felt like it, with the best chance of reaching the Super Bowl. But the 7 seed Green Bay Packers beat them, and they now head west to San Francisco, where they'll play the number 1 seed 49ers. It's about where 2 friends and 2 football work colleagues, as Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan meet for the 6th time. They're 2 of the famous Washington 2013 coaching staff that has gone on to produce a ton of head coaches, and we mentioned Bobby Slowick in the last one. He may be another person from that coaching staff to be a head coach. And LaFleur was quarterback coach when Shanahan was offensive coordinator in Atlanta as well. So they've been together for a while. In the regular season, LaFleur's Green Bay Packers had the better of the 49ers overall in history, going 2-1. But in the postseason, Shanahan was the Packers' nemesis, beating them twice in the playoffs as Aaron Rodgers was searching for a second ring. But Rodgers' time with the Packers is over, and there's a new sheriff in town, and that's Jordan Love, who was excellent in their win over the Cowboys, continuing a really impressive second half of the season, his first as a starter. Ollie, you were on the bandwagon very early. I feel like we mentioned every podcast how much you love Jordan Love, but I bet you're feeling smug now, aren't you?
Well, I mean, week 1, we were all together. We were down in Birmingham with everyone from Full 10 Yards. And it was against a much worse Chicago Bears than how they finished week 18. But I saw snippets, and I was happy for Jordan Love to be the quarterback throughout the rest of the year from what I saw from week 1. He went through his really rough patch, and it was a pretty rough patch. His completion percentage was down. He was making poor decisions, and we were close to a top 5 pick, and you were wondering, do you bite the bullet and take a quarterback? And then Thanksgiving happened against the Lions, and something switched. I don't know what, but his completion percentage went up. His decision-making was perfect. His action and everything was just so much better. And he's just got better and better and better. And he is a quarterback that I don't think, when he's not playing well, he does not take it on the chin. He knows what he can do. And now he knows he can play like this. It's not stopped him. Whether he's a player on confidence, I don't know. He honestly could be, and it just could build. But I think he's one of those players that is able to just shut everything negative out and just forget about it and just build on the positives, build on this positivity. And it's just accelerated since Thanksgiving. Had a couple of miss hits against the Giants on Monday Night Football, and then the Buccaneers, which I don't even think was Love's fault, but that he has been fantastic, and a lot of people now are seeing, just purely because of the stats and how he's played, that he is the real deal. And during his rough patch, I thought he may not be the guy, and now he's been fantastic, and I think there's a lot of money heading his way this off season.
Yeah, and I think the Aaron Jones coming back as well really helped, because having a more established run game really helped the Packers, helped them open up the offense a bit more. I think it's just such an astronomical rise for a quarterback as well in his first year as a starter. I think, as you mentioned, Ollie, I also was genuinely concerned, points this year, because in the fourth season, I know he's been, is his first year as a starter, but in his fourth season in the NFL, offense, his mechanics looked off, and he was struggling to read defense as well. But down the stretch, he was a top 5 quarterback, and fair play to Matt LaFleur as well. He changed his play calling again, having the run game in there helped as well, and they just embraced the strength. They got they found pockets of space in the middle of the field, just targeting these young receivers, and that worked. But up next is probably his toughest test yet, because the Niners defense is absolutely loaded, especially with those linebackers, as you said earlier, Ollie, in the middle of the field. Their defensive line also may be the best in football, and that's what makes it so interesting. I just don't know how this is going to go, because Green Bay found so much success scheming the young receivers open, across the middle of the field. But they've got the Niners have got such a great secondary as well as the linebackers, the defensive line. And it's secondary, even though it's missing Talanoa Hufanga, right? They've still got Charvarius Ward, who is literally one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He's had a great season this year. It'll be interesting to see, how the Niners deal with, which receiver they sort of put him on, or maybe they go more zone against this team. But I think that's the way you do it. You basically sit back in zone coverage and allow Love to read the defense and see where he's going. And I don't know if they're going to have the same success, but it just makes it a fascinating battle, isn't it? Because this Packers offense has peaked at the right time, and the Niners defense has been good all year, always is. Yeah. And they added to their defensive line by this year to last year by adding Javon Hargrave. They then added Chase Young and Randy Gregory mid-season as well. They've just got so many players who can not only stop the run but also rush the passer. It's going to be such a tough test for Green Bay, isn't it? Just going to be so fascinating to see how it pans out.
Well, I mean, as you said, the Green Bay offense has been on a upward trajectory for the last few weeks, but they're coming up against it's just a stout defense. As you said, the defensive line has just got so much talent on there. They don't even blitz that much. I was looking at the stats. They hardly blitz, and they can just get to the quarterback because they've got Osa, they've got Randy Gregory, as you said, they've got Armstead through the middle, they've got Chase Young on the other side. You can just reel off all these names off the top of your head, and they could all get to the quarterback. Green Bay's O-line has been really good in the last few weeks as well, which is, I think, another benefit from the run game. It just keeps the defense honest. Aaron Jones has had plus 110 yards in the last 3 games. That is going to be so vital through this game. But the linebackers that the 49ers have aren't going to allow that, really. They will stop the run at any cost, and they've been able to do that all season. But what you said about the secondary maybe scheming more zone plays, if they do that, I think that plays into Green Bay's hands quite nicely, because Dallas, who are known as a man coverage team, played far more zone than they usually do with Dan Quinn. And it backfired quite spectacularly. There were quite a few just make-up plays that Love had to do where he was dancing in the pocket, and he just found Romeo Doubs in the middle of the field throughout the first 3 quarters. And that's how he got 150-plus yards, just because he was able to just find some space in the zone, and he was able to just race through, find a seam, catch the ball, and just move up the field. Whether the 49ers do that again and have a scheme that does not allow that to happen, they could do that, and they could, but I feel like they have to go more man against these young receivers, because there's so many for Green Bay that Romeo Dobbs had 150 plus yards last week. Jayden Reed didn't receive a catch. Tomorrow on Saturday he could have 6-7 receptions. So it's going to be interesting to see what this secondary do. But as you said, with the talent they have, they could scheme up anything and it could work. So it is going to be a really fascinating battle.
I think the difference between the Niners defense and the Cowboys defense is the Niners are much better at linebacker. So that's probably one spot where you look at the Cowboys and you say that's what they're missing. So I'd probably say that's the only thing. So, but we've gone this far without talking about the San Francisco offense, which has just been so good. At points this year, it's looked unstoppable. It was number 1 in yards per game, and number 2 in points per game, second to Miami, and top 5 at both rushing and passing. So they're good at everything. And I'm fascinated to see how Brock Purdy looks in the playoffs, because last year he was okay in the 2 games before we get hurt in the NFC Championship game. But if it's a shootout, I don't know if it'd be okay to win, because being okay might not be enough to win this game going against Jordan Love on the other sideline with the way he's been playing lately. I think we're better than okay, but some quarterbacks can just disappear when it matters most, and it's such a huge game for Purdy, because he's played so well this year that he now has expectation on him. So everyone's looking at Purdy and saying, how are you going to fare? And that's that's going to be so interesting to watch in this game, isn't it? Just see how he plays.
Well, we're talking about the San Fran defense and how they've just got talent that you could list up. You can do the same for their offense. What they heard at quarterback has been fantastic. You've got Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, who arguably as a 1-2 punch at wide receiver are the best in the league. They've got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, which is just it is Christian McCaffrey, and then you've got George Kittle, and then you've got the All-Pro Trent Williams at tackle. You can list so many players that on this Niners roster. But as you said, it all comes down to the man in the middle, the man under the spotlight in Brock Purdy, and what he can do. Now he's got Kyle Shanahan in his corner, arguably the best head coach and the best offensive mind in the league. And he can scheme up any game that can give you the win. Whether Brock Purdy diminishes under that light remains to be seen. As you said, he was okay last year in the playoffs, but will that be enough to get them through on Saturday? You just don't know. But if any offense can do it, with Ayuk, who's been phenomenal, Deebo Samuel, who can do it all, and then Christian McCaffrey as well. There's just so much talent. Say this offense won't function, because it will function. It just will. So it's going to be so interesting to see how they do play and how Brock Purdy plays as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think the Niners will win this game because of that. I think they're going to run all over this Packers defense, as they did the last 2 times met in the playoffs, especially that one where they had like 250 rushing yards. I just got a feeling it'll be the same. The Packers are 28th against the run. The Niners had the 3rd most rushing yards in the regular season, and that's quite a mismatch. And I think, unfortunately for Packers fans, the Niners will run all over you again. So yeah, give me the Niners to win this game. Just got a feeling it'll be the same, because they're so good. And if you can't get McCaffrey going, maybe get him going in the receiving game, and then you can bring in Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason, the other running back. They got players, and I just have a feeling that in between the 3 of those guys, they're going to run away over the Packers. So I'm going to go for the Niners to win this game.
So last week I picked the Cowboys, but I had a sneaky suspicion that we could do what the Packers could do, what they have done against the Cowboys for years, and it happened. The Packers and the Niners have had quite an interesting little spat, especially in the playoffs for the last few years. And there is a big difference between this San Fran team and this Cowboys team. And although there is a little bit of me that says, oh yeah, we can do it as the 7th seed, the Packers can do it. This San Francisco team has just got Super Bowl written all over them, especially in this NFC. I believe they're 9.5 favorites as well as the Ravens.
Yes,
San Fran.
Yeah.
So I would pick the Packers to cover that 100%, but I am going to give it to the 49ers. I think they aren't going to run as much as you think they will. I think Joe Barry, he either focuses on one or the other, the pass or the run. He will focus on the run, and I feel like there may be some openings for the wide receivers, and it's just on how our cornerbacks play man, which they can do very well. I think he's going to really focus on the run, and it's not going to be as dominant on the ground as a lot of people think. But San Fran just have that quality, and they're gonna find their way into the championship.
There we are. And they will play the winner of the Lions-Bucks game on Sunday. It's the first game on Sunday. It kicks off at 8 p.m. You got two former number one overall picks facing off in that one. You got Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to Detroit to play against Jared Goff's Lions. After both QBs won their first playoff game with a second team. Baker ended the Browns' long streak without a playoff run 3 years ago, and Goff reached the Super Bowl with the Rams 5 years ago. But both quarterbacks are pushed out by their franchise that took them number one overall, who both lost last week too, actually, which is quite funny. Well, early on, the Rams probably won the Matt Stafford trade. Goff's been nothing less than solid in his time with Detroit, and they used the picks acquired in that Stafford trade to build a talented roster around him, and he's looked great this year. And Baker Mayfield is now on his fourth team. He was handed a lifeline by the Bucs heading into this year, and boy, has he excelled in that opportunity. It's one of the storylines of the playoffs, surely, isn't it? Both these two teams. These two teams led by former number one overall picks that were cast aside, and now they're playing great in the playoffs. What a story!
It's that well, yeah, you call it a stat about the both being number one picks. It's just unbelievable. And then cast aside, as you said, from the team they've been picked from, Baker's bounced around all sorts of teams. Goff's had a torrid time after getting traded from the Rams. And now they're both battling out in the divisional round of the playoffs in the NFL, which is just a fantastic story. I think both of them have been, as you say, really, really good this season. Baker Mayfield, I've always been in and out with Baker Mayfield because he has one game where he's like, oh, he looks fantastic. That's why he won the Heisman Trophy. And then he has another game where it's just like, that is Baker Mayfield through and through. It's going to be interesting to see what Baker Mayfield turns up, whether he wakes up feeling dangerous or if he throws 3 or 4 picks. We'll see. Jared Goff, as you said, he is a really good quarterback for Dan Campbell. He's been so solid for the Lions, and he's been able to just put them in winning positions, which is what the Lions roster needs because of the talent and the players it has. So he's been able to do that job really well. That's what they did last week. He put them in winning positions. He put the ball where it needed to be, and they won that game. So yeah, to have these two face off is going to be really interesting. See which two quarterbacks turn up will be really interesting as well, because we both know they're either on it or they're off it. So to see them both battling it out for a championship game is going to be really, really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. These two teams met earlier in the season. The Lions dominated Tampa Bay in Week 6 in Tampa Bay, where both teams only had one loss at the time. The Bucs didn't score a touchdown in that game, and it was one of Baker's worst games of the season. Jared Goff had one of his best games of the season in that game with 353 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air after the Bucs forced him to pass. They completely eliminated the Lions' rushing threat. So yeah, it was all on Jared Goff, and he stepped up to the plate in that game. The Bucs couldn't get anything going at all in that one on offense, and that actually started a bit of a slide for them, where they won 1 game in 7. But they turned it around at the end of the season, winning 5 or 6 to secure the NFC South, with Baker much better down the stretch too. He only turned the ball over 3 times in that period, and he had 13 big-time throws, which was the second most in that period too. So he really stepped up down the stretch, as did Rachaad White. They had no run game at all at the start of the season, but Rachaad White got going for the Bucs at the end of the season, and yeah, he helped create a different Tampa Bay team to the one we saw earlier in the season, which is why this game, I think, is much closer to call than the one at the start of the year, because the Lions are pretty much the same team as they were, but the Bucs have got better than they were at the start of the year, haven't they?
It's just chalk and cheese. Their offense is just so different from that Week 6. No run game. Baker was just where we all thought he'd be just flailing around the middle of the pack in quarterback rankings, and the Lions, with the team they had, were just able to steamroll them. Now, this Tampa team, as you said, have just they've changed so much. They've undergone they've grown. Rashad White has been able to run the ball. They've been able to find just a scheme that works for them. Baker Mayfield has found a scheme that works for him, and he's just been able to play his football, which is what Tampa Bay needed. And as you say, they reeled off 5 of 6. They were able to take it. Although it is they won the NFC South, they were able to take it, get into the playoffs, and now they're reaping the rewards for it, having a divisional game. Completely different game from week 6. And as you say, it makes it far closer to predict this game than what you'd want than the week 6 game. It's going to be so much different, and you just don't know who's going to turn up from each side of the ball, from each team. It's just who can play complementary football the best, and they'll win this game.
Yes, that's it. And for me, it just screams shootout, because you've got two offenses that love to push the football down the field and two defenses that are very, very good against the run. So I don't think any team's going to take a stronghold in the run game, which means you're just going to get Goff and Mayfield just airing it out. And as I said last week, the Lions worry me in that scenario because they go up a ton of yards all year against the pass, and it was the same against the Rams last week. They gave up 181 to Puka Nacua and Stafford for over 350 yards. But the Lions impressed me winning that game, obviously, because they stepped up in the red zone. And the 3 times the Rams reached the red zone, they were limited to 3 field goals. So that was perfect for the Lions last week. And that's the thing with Detroit. If they can keep teams out of the end zone, they're a very difficult team to beat because their offense is just so good, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, as you said, their offense is just fantastic, and they're just so methodical with it. But if they can open up this run game against the Buccaneers, who have been stout against the run, it's no mean feat, but if they can open it up, it just opens up a world more possibilities for the Lions. And even if their defense isn't as strong as it was in the red zone against the Rams last week, if Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery just find an extra hole here and there, it opens the game up. But you can say the same for Tampa. If they can find the run game and Detroit can't, Detroit are on the back foot hugely. So as you said, it could be a shootout. There could be gunslingers going left and right. If one team can find the run game and the other can't, that is the key to this game, because it makes the red zone so much more dangerous, and for either defense, and it puts the game in the hands of the team that can run the ball with time of possession, opening up the playbook, keeping the defense honest. So whoever wins that battle, I think, will win that game. And I trust Detroit a little bit more in that respect, with the two-headed monster of Montgomery and Gibbs, and with that fantastic O-line that they have.
Yeah. For me, I'm torn. I really don't know. It's definitely the hardest game to pick this week by far. And if you're gonna bet in this game, bet like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams, bet the overs on their receiving totals. Mike Evans and especially Chris Godwin or Trey Palmer, someone like that, definitely the overs on them. And I think Baker will have a few deep shots to Mike Evans at some point as well, because these Lions DBs are a bit leaky. So that does that would concern me from that aspect. But I'm just feeling the Lions. I think both teams, especially with the shootout I'm expecting it to be as well, any of the teams can win it. But I love the story of the Lions reaching the NFC Championship game for the first time in 32 years. The last time they won a playoff game was 32 years ago. They went on to win the next game and go on to the NFC Championship game. And I think history repeats itself. I think that home crowd was such a factor last week. You saw all the celebrities there. You saw, everyone from Detroit, Eminem, for example, and Taylor Lautner, and basically because so many famous people from Detroit you didn't even realise. And obviously you had Hollywood there as well, because it was the Rams. So there was just is the hottest ticket in the house, and it's actually the hottest ticket in the house this week as well, because the average ticket price for this game is $1,200. so it is. More people want to go to this than Chiefs, Bills, and Niners, Packers. Those two games are so star-studded. But yeah, Detroit Tampa Bay is the hardest ticket to get because so many Lions fans are wanting to see this game. Like I said, the home crowd was a factor last week. It was the 4th loudest game in NFL history, and it woke me up. The Lions crowd woke me up. I left it on the TV behind me when I was sleeping. My bed just to the left of me here, and I fell asleep at half time, and I woke up to the Detroit crowd screaming as they were taking the knee. So that it was so loud, it woke me up through the TV, and I think it will push the Lions into the NFC Championship game. A little story there, but it's fun.
I agree with you. I didn't even clock the home advantage, and again, fans like Detroit and an arena like Ford Field is perfect for a team like Detroit that just runs off this energy, just some sort of energy, and they're able to do that. I think they'll unlock the run game a little bit more than Tampa Bay as well, and that'll send them through to the NFC Championship game after getting their first playoff win in 32 years last week.
Tell you what, imagine a Lions-Packers Championship game on Thanksgiving. we did not see that coming.
Awesome. Just give it to me.
Yeah, I'd be very confident heading into that one as well, I bet. Right, we'll finish the podcast with what I'm sure we're all hoping is another playoff classic between the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. It's just everything we want in the playoffs, isn't it? It's that.
I was saying about Packers and 49ers and how in recent years they've had little snippets of a rivalry. This is just such a playoff rivalry after the last few games that they've had. And it's Mahomes and Allen again. And it's just it's just theatre. It's just NFL theatre. And it's gonna be so interesting to see what happens from it. Just bring it on. I just bring it on.
Yeah, you referred to it there. 3 years ago, they met in the AFC Championship game where Kansas City won before going on to lose the Super Bowl to the Bucs. A year later, they met in one of the best games of all time, a 42-36 overtime win for Kansas City, responding to the Bills going down and scoring through Gabe Davis. And then the Chiefs were defeated by the Bengals in the championship game a week later. This time, though, it's different because Patrick Mahomes, a 2-time MVP, 2-time reigning Super Bowl champion quarterback, in his 6th season as a starter, will play his first ever away playoff game in his 6th season as a starter and in his 6th season in the playoffs. In 5 straight postseason visits, 5 straight AFC Championship games as well for Kansas City. It's meant that they've never, and all those at home as well, obviously it means that they've never played, other than that Super Bowl, they've never been tasted this Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes combination outside of Arrowhead. It's just incredible. I don't know how it's happened.
Well, I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought they must have been to Cincinnati or they must have been to Buffalo one of those times. That's just an insane stat. And it's going to be so interesting, as you've just said, to see I think Andy Reid won't mind playing an away playoff game. I think he's used to that. But Patrick Mahomes hasn't faced that at all. So it will be interesting to see how he deals with that. I didn't even know that was a thing. This game is so close for me personally to pick that it's just something that small could just tip me over the edge with my pick. It's just, that's how close this game is. It's just anything like that, it could make the difference between a win and a loss.
Certainly. And there's so much history between these two teams, as we said, and because of how good they've both been, they play each other in the regular season every year as well, because they both keep winning the divisions. The Kansas City have won, I think it's 8 straight AFC West. The Buffalo have won 5 straight AFC East. So they keep playing each other in the regular season as well as in the playoffs. But what makes this game even more fascinating than what it has been before is the fact that these two teams are unlike any Kansas City or Buffalo team we've seen before. Because when the Chiefs aren't this super offensive, Patrick Mahomes slinging it to his receivers and Travis Kelce team that they've been, the last few years. But they have their best defense under Andy Reid and Brett Veach and Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, has ever had. And they turned it on offense against the Dolphins last week with one of the best performances of the year in a game where some players got hypothermia. So just I don't understand why they're playing a minus 30 temperature Celsius, which is just insane. But that's the that's the way it was. And it was just such a fun watch, that game. But Buffalo, again, their team is very different too, because they've found the run game they've been looking for years. They've had so many running backs come in and out, and none of them have made a sustained run at taking that job. James Cook has done it. He's been a revelation in the second year for the Bills. 1,122 yards on the ground and a further 445 yards in the air with 6 total touchdowns as well. So when you're getting 1,500 yards and 6 touchdowns, that's a very good season for a running back. They've also got Josh Allen cooking at the right time too. He became the first player in NFL history to throw 3 touchdown passes and also rush for 70 yards and a touchdown in a postseason game in a win over the Steelers last week on Monday. So that's the thing with Buffalo. They played 2 days later than Kansas City. So you mentioned the home field advantage, but they've also, the Kansas City have got a bit more rest. So there is that too. But the Bills are playing in front of Bills Mafia, who, because of the COVID season, they have not seen play Kansas City in front of them since 2014, and that's before Mahomes came into the league. So Mahomes has never played at Orchard Park in front of Bills Mafia before, and which is just insane. Not in the regular season. Always been an Arrowhead. The only issue is the fact that their defense, which has been excellent in the second half of the year for Buffalo, is quite injured, and they just keep losing players. Unfortunately, they lost a couple of players in that game against the Steelers on Monday. So it's quite interesting. The Bills have beaten the Chiefs the last 2 times they've met. But obviously both of those were at Arrowhead, and both of those in the regular season. One of those games was in Week 14, where it was decided that Kadarius Toney was offside, and if it wasn't for that call, Buffalo wouldn't be in the playoffs because they wouldn't have won the game. So Buffalo have gone from that game launched Buffalo from not being a playoff team to the number 2 seed, and they're now playing at home against Kansas City in the playoffs. Wow.
You just can't write NFL. You just can't write sports scripts in general, but you can't write NFL scripts. It's just so fantastic how another Chiefs Bills game is set up like this, just so brilliantly. As you said, the Chiefs and the Bills team that we're used to seeing in the last few times they've met in the playoffs is completely different. Chiefs' offense throughout the regular season has not been good at all. Like, their receivers have been really poor. Travis Kelce has not been at his unbelievably high standard as usual. And Patrick Mahomes hasn't looked like the MVP that we have seen before, the guy that could win MVP every single year. He has not been at that level. But their defense, which has always let them down almost, has played at just such a sublime level that's why they're the 3 seed. They've played just so brilliantly. Buffalo, they've had a brilliant defense for years, and they've done the same, but as you said, injuries is really hurting them. But the run game, as it always is in the playoffs, in the cold, is going to be the key. It just is always the key. And what James Cook can do at home, at Buffalo, in front of Bills Mafia, if he can run that ball, it makes life so much harder for the Chiefs defense. And although it's a stout defense, the run game is just, if that's clicking for the Bills, then it's hard to bet against them. But this Chiefs defense has been very good against the run and the pass. So again, it's just the flip of a coin, isn't it, with this game? It's just so close. And yeah, whatever team turns up more prepared, better prepared for playoff football is going to win that game. And whether it's the Chiefs defense that makes a stand or the Bills offense that makes the big play, that will decide the game.
Oh yeah, I agree. And it feels like if Buffalo are ever going to win against Kansas City in the playoffs, it's this week, because the Chiefs are going to be better than this in future, and the Bills, the defense may be a little better, but this is the best, most balanced offense the Bills have had in that time, and it's just, for me, if they can get Stephon Diggs going, the Bills win this game, but if they can't, I'm worried for them, because the Chiefs' defense has been great for years against number one receivers. Very, very good. They can just eliminate all of them. It's Spags scheme so aggressive, but it works. And you've got two corners in Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, who are so good. They're so fast as well. They were covering Tyreek Hill last week. They were really fast. And against Stephon Diggs, that worries me. And it was a case in week 14. He only caught 4 of his 11 targets, and he only had 24 yards in the air that day. Stephon Diggs. It was the James Cook show the last game when the Bills won. He had 83 receiving yards and 5.8 yards per carry, and over 150 yards from scrimmage, I think. And if the Chiefs can stop the run and Diggs, it's going to require another special Josh Allen performance to win this game. But I just don't see that happening against this defense, because it's so good. So give me the Chiefs to win this one. They're the only favourite, the non-favourite that we picked this week. Everybody else that we've picked has been a favourite. The Bills are the favourite in this game, but I think the Chiefs will upset the Bills, and I think they will win this game. But I think it'll be lower scoring than people expect it to be. But give me Kansas City to win it.
You know what? I'm really happy that you said the Chiefs, because I thought I was going to be the only. I thought I was going to have the only pick against the grain, against the favourite. It's going to be so close, and like if either Diggs or Cook turn up and have a game, it flips the game in Buffalo's favour so drastically. But if it is just on Josh Allen against this Chiefs defense, I just don't know if they're going to do it. And another thing is, we finally saw a little bit of movement and a little bit of the old Chiefs offense last week. They were clicking, they were scoring more points, and if they're able to either just keep that level or just tick over a little bit more, it changes the game. And I think the Chiefs are going to do that offensively and defensively. I think in the playoffs, when it matters, they will make the stops. Defense wins you championships. And I've got Kansas City again going to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I just turned my light off there. I didn't mean to do that. Yes, we agree on every single one of the picks this week. But again, the playoffs, there's always one surprise, and we'll see what that is. I think if I was to have a guess, it would probably be the Bucs beating the Lions. I just something about the Bucs team right now that I'm liking. So that would be my one pick. But Ollie, just let's just sit back and watch it. I can't wait to watch these games on Sunday. Now they're going to be great. And as I said at the start of the year, it's always, I think this is the best weekend of football, because it's probably the most meaningful one. I think Championship weekend, it's not the same because you don't have 4 games, because you have so many games on this weekend. It's what makes it so special, and because it's just so, it's the 4 best teams in the league facing, or the 8 best teams in the league facing each other off, and it's just such a fun experience. So we'll see you next time. We'll see you after divisional weekend. Next time I will speak to you on the Full10Yards NFL podcast, we will know the 4 teams in the championship games. We will know the 4 teams that are candidates to get into the Super Bowl, and we will be one step closer to the big game in Vegas in February. Thank you for joining me, Ollie. It's been great to have on the podcast. I think it's been we'll have you on again probably on the Super Bowl show. We'll get your prediction for that for that game on that podcast. But thanks for joining us on the podcast this season. It's been great to have you in all the episodes.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure every single time. And divisional weekend. Let's have it. Let's have it.
Absolutely. I've been Sam Morris. This has been the Full10Yards NFL podcast. And I will see you when we know our conference championship teams.